back to Mysteries and Mimosas, and thank you for joining us. I'm Max, and with me is my amazing wife, Aria.
Hi, everyone.
Thank you for joining us today for the first episode of Season 2. We appreciate each and every one of you for listening. I want to kick today's episode off the right way, and Season 2 off the right way, by giving you a case update. So in Season 1, we released a Mystery Monday episode about Matthew Barancho. Do you remember Matthew?
I do.
So on March 20th of 2019, 34-year-old Matthew Barancho left his Fort Hall, Idaho home with his pet dachshund, Asa.
Was it a dachshund? I don't think I
dachshund.
knew that part. I knew he had his dog,
We
but...
talked about it. You probably forgot. That's okay.
I did.
I remembered.
Oh,
Yeah,
cute. Okay.
because I like those little dogs.
Yeah, they're cute.
4 days later, Matthew's truck was found abandoned near Snowville, Utah, which is about a 2-hour drive south from his house, into Utah from Idaho. Inside Matthew's truck was his wallet, a cell phone, and missing was Matthew and his dog. On March 27th of 2019, his dog was found, but Matthew was nowhere to be found, and he was missing for quite some time. Well, a few weeks ago, on a YouTube episode, our YouTube episode, Matthew Barancho, we received information that his remains were found. According to the Box Elder Sheriff's Office, a man hunting antlers out there searching for they call those sheds.
Shed antlers, yeah.
Yeah. Came across skeletal remains. That's what happened. Investigators used dental records to positively identify the remains to belong to Matthew.
So, on one hand, it's good news that Matthew is found. You know, now his family at least knows where he's at. But they still have so many unanswered questions until the death investigation is complete, at least. And even then, maybe that's not going to answer all of their questions, perhaps.
Oh, sure. I mean, it's been 5 years since he was gone. And I'm sure the family was hopeful that he was still alive, that maybe he just started a new life. He's moved on to something else, running from something perhaps. But now maybe they can heal moving forward. And of course, if we receive more information or we learn more information when it comes out, we'll be sure to give an update here. In the meantime, I am working. It's under construction, working on our website, mysteriesandmimosas.net. But you can visit us on Instagram, Facebook at Mysteries and Mimosas Podcast. We also have that Discord server that nobody loves. Literally one person likes, listener Bill, old faithful. That's what I call him.
Still, no one has friended you on
That's
Discord.
okay. That's a young man's game. I'm an old man. I shouldn't even be on Discord.
I know, but like, even if you are like an old man and you open an account on social media, like, you at least have like scammers that try to friend you.
No,
you don't even
they
have
never
that.
They look at me and they're like, oh God, that guy doesn't have any money.
They
He's
don't
not even interested.
They don't even want to friend you.
No.
That's sad.
It is. Speaking of social media, in 2003, which social media platform launched in August, reaching a global audience, having significant impacts on Speaking of social media, which social media platform launched in August of 2003, reaching a global audience, having a significant impact on pop culture, music, and technology? That's trivia question number 1. And 2003 is the year of this episode.
Okay. Was it MySpace?
It was MySpace. Congratulations.
Well, thanks.
Can you name one more social media platform that launched in 2003? Not as popular as MySpace, not as popular as Facebook. Still very important.
I don't know.
LinkedIn.
Oh, that launched in 2003?
Yes, it did.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. Okay, so 1 for 1. In 2003, which respiratory illness began in China and spread worldwide, causing a global epidemic? And it's not COVID. This is 2003, not 2020.
Okay, I have 2 guesses. Was it SARS?
What's your other guess?
Well, actually, that's my only guess. Or
SARS would be correct.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. Funny story for everybody listening, and I'm sure my sister's listening, and she knows exactly what I'm going to say. It was about 2000, I guess it was 2003, because it came in 2003 and I think it left in 2003, SARS. But I actually had her convinced that my cat caught SARS from another cat in the neighborhood, and I had to keep my cat in a bubble to keep it alive at home, that it couldn't have. Yeah, she believed me. 100%.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that happened.
No, I totally believe you would say something like that.
And she
I just
totally
can't
believed
believe
me.
she would believe you.
Well, she's dumb. So that's brother-sister love. On December 13th of 2003, which famous dictator was captured by U.S. forces?
I have no idea.
No? No clues? No guesses?
No.
No? No? Do you want to guess a country?
No.
Okay, what if I gave you a hint? I'm going to take this point away. You're going to lose because you don't know. But what if I gave you a hint and he was the dictator of Iraq? Still nothing? You're not really good at dictators and
No.
foreign affairs?
Apparently not.
Have you ever heard of a guy by the name of Saddam Hussein?
Oh, Saddam Hussein.
He had an affair with Satan on a South Park episode.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
I did know that.
He was Satan's lover in South Park. But anyway, you lose that one, so you're 2-1. Here you go. This one's right up your alley, though. I think you'll get this one. In 2003, which Disney Pixar movie was released, which at that time was the highest grossing animated movie?
In 2003? A Bug's Life?
Whoa, it's not A Bug's Life,
always
but it
guess
was.
that.
I think that was released in 2003. It's a different
Feels
one.
like it was.
I'll give you a hint. It had Ellen DeGeneres as a voice.
Oh, Finding Nemo.
Finding Nemo it is. Yeah, sorry. Wow, 50%. I
That's-
feel like I should have a tiebreaker, but I don't. I got nothing for you.
That's okay.
I
I don't think anybody really had a lot of high hopes for me, so...
You know, MySpace surprised me. Did you have MySpace?
Yes.
Were you friends with Tom?
Yes. Did I have MySpace?
I may or may not know somebody that's still friends with Tom. I'll just leave that out there. I'm not going to commit to it, but I might know somebody that knows Tom. Maybe
Yeah.
I don't. Maybe I do.
Maybe we do.
Anyway, what do you got for a mimosa recipe for us today?
So today's mimosa is to help bring back memories of our cruise vacation recently. It's the Bay Breeze Mimosa.
The Bay Breeze Mimosa.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
It's super easy. You mix equal parts of pineapple juice and cranberry juice, add a splash of your favorite champagne, and it's done.
I don't like that. I think we have it backwards. We don't add a splash of champagne. We add a splash of the juice, right? Because I like champagne in my mimosa.
Right.
You maybe like it a little bit more juicier. I like it a little bit more bubbly. Okay, so today's case is from Nashville, Tennessee. Founded by James Robertson and a party of Wattagans in 1779, Nashville is alive and thriving as the capital of Tennessee today. I bet you didn't know that. You did. I'm just kidding. It was established as the capital of Tennessee in 1843. It was originally called Fort Nashboro after the American Revolutionary War hero Francis Nash. Today, Nashville is home to the Grand Ole Opry, the Country Music Hall of Fame, and of course, Nashville Hot Chicken.
Oh, you have a story about Nashville
I do.
Hot Chicken.
Yeah, I don't know if I want to put this out. You know what? I don't really care. I'll put it out there. We had plans. We visited Nashville last year. We saw Guns N' Roses in concert in Nashville. We stayed right off of Broadway Street. We went to all the fun bars and everything. And if you've never been to Nashville, you need to bump this one up to the top of your bucket list. In my opinion, this was one of my favorite places to ever visit. Mainly because I'm a big fan of live music and fun.
There's live music everywhere.
Literally everywhere.
Yes.
Kid Rock's bar was my favorite. It's 3, maybe 4 stories. I don't even remember.
There's
Multiple stories
live
of
music
live
on
music.
each level.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so it's like that all the way down Broadway. There's, multiple levels, rooftop bars. It's just a lot of fun. Especially if you like to drink mimosas. But anyway, Nashville, I guess, is famous for this thing called Nashville hot chicken. I can't tell you where to get it, but if you ask any of the locals, they'll tell you exactly who has the best Nashville hot chicken, and I vaguely remember who it is. Apparently, I got some knockoff Nashville
It
hot
wasn't
chicken.
authentic Nashville hot chicken.
Maybe it was, but it was served at the concert, so I know it wasn't a good idea. I love Mexican food. I can handle spicy stuff, but this Nashville hot chicken, let me just tell you, it did me over.
It almost ruined a very important part of our vacation. I'll just say that.
Well, so we met Aria's sister. The next morning, we were going on a tour. We had a scheduled tour bus of the city, which I also highly recommend because they give you a ton of history lessons
So
throughout
fun.
the city.
It was so fun.
They take you down Music Row. They just have a ton of information that you just will never know unless you do the city tour. So we had a specific time that we were going to go on this tour, and Nashville Hot Chicken decided to come back and visit me, and I couldn't find a restroom, and so I ended up rushing into the lobby restroom of the hotel room, and it was very clean.
Sorry, you got to take a step back because we're eating breakfast at the hotel when
Yeah.
this all of a sudden hits you, right?
Don't judge. Everybody's been there. Everybody's been in my shoes.
But I'm like, okay, we have just enough time to finish up breakfast and then go meet to do this tour.
Yeah.
And then you're like, I
can't.
gotta go. I'm like,
Did you want me to ruin the tour bus?
Oh,
I mean,
no.
there was no options. I had to run into the hotel lobby bathroom, so I go in there, and it's super quiet, super clean. Which, by the way, traveler tip. I've learned this from doing extraditions with people. All the people I travel with say hotel lobby restrooms are the cleanest and the best and the most empty. Nobody ever uses them. So there you go, traveler tip. Anyway, turns out when I'm leaving, I come out of the stall and I'm like, there's no urinals in this restroom. What's going on? Nashville's weird. Nah, I was in the women's restroom the whole time. So yeah, there you go. You heard it here. Max blew up the hotel lobby women's restroom in Nashville by accident.
Wow, I was sitting out there freaking out that we were going to miss our tour bus. Yeah.
Yeah.
All alone.
It's a lot of information about me that all of our listeners did not want to hear, but
Well, now you know my life.
yeah.
It's a little glimpse into the life of Aria. Anyway. So
Anybody listening right now that has never had an emergency like that after eating something they knew that they shouldn't have eaten, they're just lying to themselves. And so I'm just brave enough to put it out there because I don't care. It happens. It's just human anatomy. Things happen. So anyway, I'm very sorry to traumatize anybody with that, but it was funny because who does that? Just me. It's my luck, you know? Mm-hmm. Okay, so of course this episode isn't just about the wonderful city of Nashville, which, again, I can't say enough about. I love that place. Today's case is about Tabitha Tuders. This case has been featured on Unsolved Mysteries podcast. It's profiled on America's Most Wanted and also the show Disappeared. So we're gonna give a brief overview of this episode because it's such a mystery to me, and I really wanted to present this one. But I highly encourage anybody listening to check out at least that Disappeared episode on it because it has a lot more information about the suspects in this and how police worked through it. So born in February of 1990, Tabitha was 13 years old at the time of her disappearance. According to Tabitha's family, she was a straight-A student in school, and she was kind of just your typical 13-year-old girl. Her parents described her as a happy kid with a great sense of humor. Her family also remembers Tabitha had a, very close relationship with her parents. And like most 13-year-old girls, she was very close with her dad. Had a particularly strong bond with him. His name is Bo Tuders. In an interview with Tabitha's mom you'll see it on Disappeared, it's actually really sad. Her name is Deborah, and she remembers how she would put Tabitha to bed in Tabitha's own room. And Deborah would wake up, Tabitha would be at the foot of their bed. And so Deborah said one day, she asked Tabitha, why do you do this? And Tabitha said, it's because I like to be close to you. And so Deborah, she tears up and she says, I never stopped her from doing it again.
That is heartbreaking, actually.
Yeah, it is heartbreaking because, if you think about it, when we have kids, sometimes, you just want your own space and everything. And so I don't know if that's the scenario here. It doesn't sound like it, but when they tug at your heartstrings and they just want to be near you, you can never discourage that
No.
because they naturally seek our love and affection. And they trust us the most, and so we have to be able to give that to them, our unconditional love.
For sure. I know when you go out of town for work or anything like that, this last time you went was the first time that our daughter didn't want to like have a slumber party and watch movies and sleep in your spot in the bed, because she always did that. So I know how that feels, and now
They grow up.
that she's getting older, she didn't do that, and I was actually really sad. I really missed that.
Yeah, and you know what makes me sad is you've probably heard this saying, if you have kids, there was a time where you were always picking your kid up, and holding them, carrying them through the store, things like that. And there was a time that you put your little baby down for the last time and you never picked them up because they grew up into adults. Or, unfortunate cases like this, maybe you put them down for the last time and they become missing or they're victims. Mm-hmm. And so it just gives you pause to think we really shouldn't take life for granted. It's way too short to take for granted. And so that's the heartstrings that Deborah pulled from me when I watched that episode of Disappeared.
Yeah.
According to the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, Tabitha's family receives a lot of interview requests. And in response to those interview requests, the family released this statement, which, I wanted to reach out to them, but obviously we're going to respect their privacy. So this is what they said in that statement. Every day we pray for answers in Tabitha's case. Today is no different. We appreciate the work law enforcement agencies are doing to try to find her after 17 long years. As we wait patiently to learn more, we ask that you give our family privacy at this time. We have never given up hope that we will find Tabitha. And it's been more than 17 years now. I think it's been 21 years or thereabouts.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure that still rings, true for them now. They probably receive a ton of television interview requests because it's a pretty big case in Nashville. So, it just kind of goes to show how deeply impacted these parents can be from such a tragedy.
Yeah, of course. I mean, I know that they want to get the word out there. So probably initially they did a lot more interviews and things like that than they do now. They just want their own privacy and it's their grieving process, right? It's very personal and private, and they just don't want people interfering in that, and I totally get it.
Right. And so to kind of paint you a picture, Tabitha, she was raised with two older siblings. Kevin, her brother, was 12 years older than her, and Jamie, her sister, was 8 years older. They lived in East Nashville, not the greatest neighborhood. There was, it's kind of a high crime neighborhood. She attended Bailey Middle School, which was about 2 miles away from her home. The kind of kid Tabitha was, she had straight A's. She sang in the church choir. Deborah said that she worked early every morning. She would leave around 5 in the morning. And on the morning of Tabitha's disappearance, she saw Tabitha in the house before heading off to work. And then Bo would wake up and go to work later than Deborah, but he would leave before Tabitha went to school. So when that happened, he would wake her up and tell her, hey, you got to get up and go to school. So that's the last time that she was seen was by her dad, Bo, when she was watching television in the morning as he leaves the house.
Okay.
So Tabitha was to walk from her bus stop, which is in the 1300 block of Lillian Street, about a block away. So the bus stop is only right around the corner. You kind of take a ride out of Tabitha's house, go to the end of the street and down a block, and you're at the bus stop. It's on the corner of 14th and Boscobel Street. Deborah arrived home at about 1:30. So before we continue on what happened next, just to give you an understanding. So the bus stops at 14th and Boscobel Street, and then you can walk down Boscobel Street to 15th and Boscobel, and the bus kind of circles around and comes and it stops there also. And so Deborah had told Tabitha, hey, if you get to the bus stop on 14th and Boscobel and there's no kids there, I don't want you waiting alone. So go ahead and walk down Boscobel Street and catch the bus on 15th, where there's more kids. So that's kind of important for a little bit later.
Okay.
So like I said, Deborah arrived home around 1:30, and she expected Tabitha to be home around 4 p.m. So she gets home before Tabitha, but Tabitha never showed up. Obviously, this worried Deborah, so she drove to the bus stop, kind of maybe hoping to find her along the route walking home. And then she ended up going to the school, only to learn that Tabitha never made it to the bus and never made it to school. Yeah, so the unfortunate thing in this case, Tabitha's parents weren't alerted by the school about her unplanned absence, which is particularly frustrating in this case because you have a child that gets straight A's. She has perfect attendance. She has good grades. This is out of character for her. So, not trying to shift the blame on anyone in particular. Obviously, the person to blame for this is whoever may have taken her or whatever may have happened to her.
Of course, but
the school should have alerted the parents.
Yeah, I mean, you could have been hours ahead had that happened. So that it's frustrating and it's unfortunate.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you figure by the time Deborah is able to, finally file a report, it's probably 8 to 10 hours somewhere in there because the whole school day she's gone.
Right.
And then
several hours of the afternoon.
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. So after contacting several of Tabitha's friends in a desperate attempt to find her, Deborah learned nobody knew where she was, so she did end up calling the police and filing a report. During the initial response, police believed Tabitha might have been a runaway, but they then became suspicious after they learned more about her. Okay? And so I know we just talked about this in the Mystery Monday episode, but when you respond to a missing person, case, when you have a teenager, you as a police officer, you do have to explore the possibility that this might be a runaway.
Of course.
And so it's not that you don't take the missing person case serious, but you explore that opportunity, or you take that opportunity to explore that option to talk to the parents and gather more information. Like, hey, is this a behavior that this child has done before? Has she ran away in the past? Has, who are her friends? Is there a possibility that we're not looking at a missing person, but just a kid that violated curfew, so to speak, of the home?
So based on everything we know, it doesn't seem like Tabitha was a troubled teen with a propensity to run away or anything like that. She had a good relationship with her parents. She's doing well in school. It doesn't seem like she was hanging out with the wrong crowd that we know of, and she seemed to be very happy from all accounts. So not your typical runaway situation.
Right. And the other thing that's important to mention is the night before, I guess she got her report card and she was super happy about her grades. So all these things indicate that, hey, you have a happy child with no reason to run away from home. If it's a broken home, a tragic situation, kid's not doing good, and this is a pattern, then maybe you might explore that a little bit stronger. And I don't know what that initial police response was, but that's my guess is that's probably why they quickly turned that from a runaway scenario to, okay, now we have something that is suspicious and we believe that this is not what it is. And so really the difference between those, right? There's not a big difference in the way that you initially take that report. If you have a missing person and you think maybe this is a runaway, the same processes initially take place, such as putting them into the computer. So if they're contacted by law enforcement, it alerts that officer that this is either a runaway or a missing person, right? Mm-hmm. All those things kind of remain the same. The difference in this case is she was not initially, or at least not immediately, entered as a Amber Alert. So it didn't go out as an Amber Alert because they don't have enough information to believe that she was taken at that time.
Right.
But initially that did happen. Eventually that happened.
Yeah, but at this immediate juncture, it's not like they have a description of a vehicle or a witness that saw anything happen.
Right. Yeah. I mean, yeah. So there are, it's not just like a cop who shows up can just say, oh, you know what? I'm going to get on my phone and issue this Amber Alert. It doesn't obviously work that way.
Right.
There are certain guidelines that law enforcement has to follow in order to say, hey, this is a true Amber Alert. Not only that, But when police searched Tabitha's room, they didn't find any evidence or information to suggest that she was a runaway. It didn't appear that she had packed anything to leave. Her clothes were still there. Personal belongings were still there. She even had like $20 in cash that she was, I guess, saving or just had that she left in the room. So this might have been all the stuff that kind of prompted the police to say, okay, there's more to the story here than a runaway.
Right.
One thing that police found was a piece of paper with the letters TDT, the letter N, and then the letters MTL. So TDT appeared to be an abbreviation for Tabitha's initials. The letter N most likely stands for the word and then the initials or letters MTL seem to indicate some other person's initials, right? So it's like, Tabitha and Mike or whatever the case might be.
Sure.
So let's break this down for a minute. From an investigative standpoint, I would obviously be very interested in finding anybody and everybody with the initials MTL. And sometimes, and especially in 2003, these investigations are very slow to develop leads early on, especially someone who vanishes unexpectedly and out of character. So that's initially probably what the police were looking into. Who is this person? So they're going to question friends and family and try to figure out who it is. And they just never really could sort that out. They did find one person, according to the disappeared episode, they did find a classmate with those initials, but they were never able to make any connection. And that kid was at school the whole time when Tabitha became missing.
So maybe she had a crush on that kid,
Yeah,
or
it could
something
mean nothing,
simple.
right?
You know how, girls write on their notebooks,
Right.
At that age.
Sure.
Well, there's actually a lot of possible scenarios here. MTL could be someone in Tabitha's life who her parents know nothing about, and who is the person responsible for Tabitha's disappearance. Or it could be someone in Tabitha's life who her parents know nothing about that has nothing to do with Tabitha's disappearance.
Right.
Like I said before, it could just be a crush that Tabitha has and the note means nothing. It could also be like somebody famous or somebody, that she has a crush on, or even a fantastical person that
Sure.
she's made up just for fun or something. I mean, it could mean something, it could mean nothing.
Exactly. But the other scenario, which I see frequently in internet sexual exploitation cases today, the initials MTL might be like an adult using a fake name to avoid detection and, fooling her using kind of like now with Snapchat, for instance, or, Instagram or any of these social media things where what happens is these adults create fake accounts, they create fake names, and they lure these children into doing things that they ordinarily wouldn't do by, exploiting them. And, in most scenarios, they'll offer them money, drugs, vapes, tobacco, you name it. They'll offer them all these things after building their trust under a fake name. Well, the funny thing about it is a lot of times these people think, well, it's Snapchat. It's going to be deleted. No one's going to know. Mm-hmm. But what happens is Snapchat, Instagram, Discord, Facebook, Meta, all these companies, they store those things, all those chats, all those pictures, everything is stored on their server for an amount of time. Who knows how long? And so the quicker police and detectives are able to write warrants for that information, or we call it a production of records, the more likely we are going to get information off of those servers. But back then, we don't really know. I mean, she's obviously not having a smartphone in 2003.
Right.
But what we did learn, and it highlights it in the disappeared episode, is that Tabitha was at some point in time using a library computer, getting on a chat room.
Yeah.
And so police explored that as well. They actually were able to identify which computer they were using. She was using. They were able to actually verify that, yep, she was on this in a chat room, but they were unable to get any of the content of the chats.
Oh, that's really unfortunate.
It is. And, here's my advice, and it's unpopular with children, but Snapchat is probably the worst application that you can allow a child to have. Think about what Snapchat is used for. I can send you a picture and it can be deleted immediately. You have a very limited time to be able to view it. Once you open it and you close it, it's gone. Gone for you as the receiver, but it's not gone from the server.
Right.
And so here's just a couple different scams that might happen. So the one that I mentioned where they will, there's a feature called Quick Add where they will add the children. They will build their trust. They will then begin to offer them things in exchange for sex or pictures or nudes or whatever. A lot of times what they'll do, if it's not somebody that's meeting them for that sole purpose of having sex with the child, what they'll do is they'll say, hey, now that I have all these nudes and everything, if you don't Venmo me, $300, I'm going to release these nude pictures of you to everybody on your friends list.
So they just start exploiting them.
Yeah, they start exploiting them. And then, if the child's even able to Venmo them $300, they'll say, well, now you have to give me $500 more. And they'll keep doing it. And actually, it is a cause across the United States of a lot of teen suicides because they think, oh, this is the end. Everybody's going to see me. It's embarrassing. Or they'll continue to say, hey, give me more pictures. And a lot of times it's not even people in the United States. It's people overseas that we'll never be able to track down. But they don't care. All they want is money, and they don't care if they embarrass this kid or if this kid kills himself. They don't care. They're scammers. And so in order to help you as a parent protect your child from these online services, you just have to be aware of what they do, educate yourself on how to use them, how to monitor them, and then just don't be afraid to tell your kid, no, you can't have that. And make sure that they're not downloading it and using it behind your back. And if your kid is giving you problems and they're just not mature enough to have a phone, well, then maybe start restricting their access online, their access to computers, all of that stuff. You just have to be able to say no.
Right.
And it's hard.
It is hard. And, looking back, this is 2003. Her parents probably didn't even know about chat rooms, possibly, let alone that she's going to the library and using them and chatting with who knows who she could have thought she's talking to a kid, could have been an adult, who knows.
Right.
And then you have the worst case scenario where then they ask to meet up with this person and then you never know what happens.
And then
from there.
You never see him again.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, and the thing on this is there's no connection in this investigation as far as I'm aware that the chat room had anything to do with her disappearance, but it could have, and it would be nice to know what are those chats, because they could be completely innocent and, completely irrelevant to the case, or they can be very relevant and have everything to do with it. You just don't know unless you get that information.
Exactly.
And that's a chat room on a library computer. Imagine nowadays we allow our kids to have their phones at school, in their bedroom at night sometimes. They have full access to this stuff, and I'm just saying it's something worth talking about where parents should be aware of what your kid is doing. Mm-hmm. And I'm guilty of not always knowing.
Of course.
So it's easy.
We all are.
Yeah, it's easy to not know.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, moving on. Police interviewed several witnesses who reported seeing Tabitha that morning. So several of these witnesses saw Tabitha at the intersection of 14th Street and Boscobel Street, which is the location of her bus stop where she's supposed to go, unless she's not there with other kids and then walks down to 15th, remember?
Right.
Several of her schoolmates on the bus recall seeing her there as well. One child witness, however, which is a younger male student, told police that he saw Tabitha getting into a red car driven by an African-American male wearing a baseball cap. The young boy recalled seeing Tabitha getting into the car on Boscobel Street, kind of like halfway up the block. And later in the investigation, police used dogs to track Tabitha's scent onto Boscobel Street, losing the scent about halfway in the block.
So, kind of matching exactly what his story
matches
was.
what he's saying.
Where she gets in the car.
Yeah, and so I've, in my research, I've seen some people analyze this case, and one of the biggest critics or critiques, I guess, of this is, well, if this kid's on the bus or at the bus stop, how can he possibly see into this car and know that it's a black male with a baseball cap? Well, That's a great question from police, but perhaps this person could have been, driven past them and he saw them before, the car met up with Tabitha. There's a lot of scenarios. And so, you know, depending on a lot of factors, especially that early in the morning, which way was the sun shining? If it's in his eyes, probably not. He's not going to see who's in the car, right?
Right.
Because there will be glares on windshields, different things like that. But these are things that we take into considerations when we do these investigations and we try to, validate people's statements and see how much weight it holds. Well, if the sun was shining the other direction, for instance, it's behind the student witness and it's shining into the car. Yeah, there could be a glare on the windshield that prevents him, or it could give you a crystal clear view of who's all in that car, and then other things to take into consideration. If it's a side view, are the windows tinted? There's a lot of factors and follow-up questions that investigators learn over the years to ask. How valid is this? Well, in my opinion, just knowing what we know, he saw this, he reported this, and the dog's nose supports it.
Yeah, exactly. It's a very good possibility that he did see that.
Yeah. So over the years, police received several tips. They received a lot of tips, actually, and they had a couple persons of interest, several persons of interest, but they never made any arrests in her case. Over the years, detectives followed up on all these tips, and I just wanted to kind of tell you about 3 of these suspects or persons of interest that they developed where they looked into them. One of them was a young African-American male who used to date Tabitha's sister. Police initially turned their attention to him as a possible suspect. They brought him in for an interview. But in addition to having an alibi at the time of Tabitha's disappearance, he also passed a polygraph examination. So they were able to rule him out. Another person of interest police looked into is Millard Earl Smith. Less than a month after Tabitha went missing, Millard lured a young boy onto his motorcycle by telling him that he knew his mom and that it was okay for him to go with Millard. That's creepy.
It is, for sure. Did this happen in the area then, I take it?
I'll get to that.
Okay.
I just want to take an opportunity here too. This is another good parenting advice, especially with young kids like this. Kids are trusting of adults. And so if an adult comes to your child and says, "Hey, I know your mom and they wanted me to pick you up, there's an emergency." Children don't have the forethought or the wherewithal to think, "Oh, this might be a trap." They just believe it.
Right.
And so that's how a lot of these sex offenders and child abusers and everything, they're manipulative, and so they'll use that against them to try to lure them in, and unfortunately it works. And so a good tool to use, or a good method to avoid those types of scenarios, is to have a password with your child. Mm-hmm. And so whatever the password might be, the child can then look at the adult and say, "Okay, yeah, I'll go with you. What's the password?" And of course, he's not going to know because it's something only you and your child know.
Right.
Also, maybe on top of that, tell your child, "Don't ever get in a car with anybody unless I am there." Mm-hmm. Right? And that actually happened in this case, according to Bo, I guess, and Deborah on the Disappeared episode, and I'm trying to remember exactly what she said, but they told Tabitha, "Don't ever get in a car with anybody. Don't ever get in a car with anybody because it's dangerous. They live in a bad part of town." And so Deborah actually said that on one occasion, one of her friends, who Tabitha knew, saw Tabitha and said, "Hey, I'll give you a ride to school." And she said, "Well, no, my mom told me not to get in the car." So even with somebody that she knew and potentially trusted, she still wouldn't get in the car with them. And so...
Well, that's interesting then.
Right.
Yeah.
And so why did she potentially get into this red car?
Right.
Was she threatened? I don't know. So anyway, back to Millard. So he took the young boy to a trailer, because the boy did get on the motorcycle, took him to a trailer where he tried to get the boy inside the trailer by promising to give him a CD player, a radio, money, and new clothes. The boy obviously became suspicious, and then Millard just finally told the boy, "Look, I'm just going to be honest with you. I want to take you inside to masturbate you."
What?
Well, yeah.
Ew.
So obviously this freaked the kid out.
What a creep.
Yeah, exactly. Who says that?
Ew.
Who thinks that?
Right.
Perverts, child molesters, monsters.
Yeah.
The young boy got freaked out. He right away he ran away, alerted the groundskeeper. Millard obviously wasn't arrested right away because about a month later, he did the same thing to a young girl at a Greyhound bus station by telling that young girl that, hey, your boyfriend sent me and said I can give you a ride. Well, she trusted him. She got on the back of Millard's motorcycle. He took her to the same trailer where he sexually assaulted her at knife point. So eventually Millard was arrested. He quickly became a suspect in Tabitha's case because, just like you asked, where Millard picked up the young boy, it was only a couple blocks away from Tabitha's house. And it was right around that time. So I don't know why, but Millard was never charged in Tabitha's case. Maybe he had an alibi too. I don't know that information. So one other person of interest that's worth mentioning is Albert Franklin. Albert has been a long-time suspect or person of interest in Tabitha's disappearance. There's not a lot of information on why he's a person of interest, but as early as 2020, police conducted a search on a property tied to Albert. Of course, Albert denies any involvement in her disappearance, and he's never been charged with anything related to Tabitha's case. But the reason people think Albert may have something to do with Tabitha's disappearance is because Albert used to live near Tabitha in East Nashville, and police received a tip that Tabitha was on the property at one point that they searched, but of course they didn't find her in their search efforts. And it's worth noting that Albert is currently serving time in federal prison related to a 2010 drug sting. Yeah. So,
but nobody's ever been arrested or charged in connection?
Nobody's ever been arrested. She's still missing. She's never been seen. It's just an unfortunate case of, most likely a child abduction. There's not a lot of information, obviously, to go on for them, or they would have solved it by now.
Yeah.
It's much easier, I think, nowadays to do investigations because most all kids have some kind of cellular device to be connected to their parents. In this case, it brings me back to Kelsey's Law, or the Kelsey Smith Act. I think that, a simple phone ping might have brought some information forward where they could have solved this. That is a huge tool and a very good investigative step to take in cases like this.
Sure, because not only the victim's cell phone, but the suspect or the person who potentially did something, their cell phone activity as well. Were they in the area?
Sure. Yeah. No, that's a good point. And, cell phones are just, that's a whole other discussion. There's a lot to do with getting warrants for cell phones and how long carriers retain information, essentially, to kind of wrap it up in the easiest way possible. There's three main providers, T-Mobile, AT&T, and Verizon, and they all hold different records for different amounts of times. There's different requirements for submitting production of records to those carriers. And then when you get those records back, they're all in different formats. They don't make it easy on law enforcement, that I assure you. I would really love to see one day that they all get on the same page and they all have one method of submitting court orders and one method and standardized procedure and format to give you those records. Most of the time when you're doing cases like this, you're writing a production of records court order in order to get information to write another one and then another one and another one.
Right. And time is of the essence in these cases. You know?
But conversely, I understand why those processes are there because they protect us from government infringement, right? So it is necessary, but I do wish there was some sort of balance to make it easier, especially in cases like this. And obviously, this isn't a factor in 2003. There's no information to believe that Tabitha would have had a phone. Back then it would have been a flip phone. She didn't have one. She was just trusted like all kids of that generation to make it to the bus, to get to school on her own, and then to make it home.
And she had done it so many times before. So, yeah.
Can you imagine just day by day going through the routine? Every day's the same. Your kids going to the bus stop on their own, coming home. You count on them to be walking into the, through the door at 3:30, 4 o'clock. And that just doesn't happen. Your whole world is turned upside down. It's just never the same.
No, I can't imagine because I'm a mom too. And so just to imagine my daughter doesn't come home from school one day and I never hear from her again. I don't know what happened to her. And I mean, that's what's happening to this family. This is 2003 and now we're in 2024 and they still don't have answers. So that's 21 years that not only have they had to live without their daughter, but they have to wonder what happened to her.
Right.
Is she possibly still alive and being held somewhere? Because that happens too. We've seen, look at JC Dugard, several years she's kept in someone's home and prisoner and repeatedly, being abused and all those years. And so it does happen. So of course, as parents, you're wondering, is that my situation? Is my daughter being held that way? Or, is she gone and we just haven't found her remains? I don't know. I'm not saying it's any easier when you have resolution and know, yes, this is what happened. And the person is now serving time in prison for it. I'm not saying that's easier, but at least there's some kind of answers for you at that point. These parents have gone 21 years without knowing anything. They don't know the last time they saw their daughter, she was at home getting ready to leave for school, and they just never saw her again.
Right. And, for me, I just try to think like, man, not only not knowing, but it's got to be difficult on the investigators too. This case is, swapped hands surely multiple times. It's not the same detective on the case today. And just not knowing, not being able to help this family because you just can't get it solved. That sucks. Yeah. There's no other way to put it. That's hard on law enforcement. And that's why it's important to remember that it does impact everybody, the family, the friends, the community. Even in that disappeared episode, Deborah's talking about, we had friends that don't talk to us anymore, not because of any other reason than they just don't know what to say to us. And so it's easier for them to just avoid us than confront us and not know how to console us, basically.
And actually, that happens so often. People will just eventually distance themselves because they don't know what to say. They get scared to go around because they don't want to say the wrong thing. Right. And they just don't have words. Like, what do you say? What do you say to a mom who lost their child and doesn't know where they're at and hasn't known for 21 years? Like, really, where do you find the words? What do you say? And so I think that happens more often than not, that people eventually just kind of drift away just because they're afraid to say the wrong thing.
Yeah, they don't want to offend them. They don't want to, bring up memories. Mm-hmm. But the thing that, if you are that person and those family members, just remember anything you say isn't going to spark a memory because it's always on their mind all the time.
Yeah. And I think, I think a lot of times they do want to talk about that. They do want to talk about it. They do want to talk about those memories. It's a delicate balance though, I think.
Sure. Yeah. Because everybody's different, right? Yeah. And then it just kind of makes me wonder from the investigative standpoint is, they probably explored a lot of scenarios and a lot of theories. And, for me, is this a person that knew her and she felt comfortable getting in the car? Is this somebody who threatened her to get in a car? Did she get in a car? I think she did. Or is this somebody that, stalked her and knew her routine? This could be a person like that that's just knowing the routine, seeing the kids walking and learning it and saying, I'm going to take my opportunity today. Today's the day I'm going to take that kid. Mm-hmm. Today's the day I'm going to take Tabitha. Maybe that was the case. Who knows? Either way, it's very, very unfortunate. And hopefully, if you do know information about this, any little tip helps. You can remain anonymous. I would just encourage you to come forward, even if you don't think it's relevant. Come forward and give information.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, If you have any information about Tabitha Tuders' disappearance or whereabouts, you can contact the Metropolitan Nashville Police Department at 615-862-8600. Do you have a description of Tabitha, at least when she disappeared? I know there's age progression and everything now, but...
I do. Tabitha was 13 years old at the time of her disappearance. She would be 34 years old today. She's described as a white female, 4 feet 9 inches to 5 feet 1 inch tall, 90 to 100 pounds. She was wearing a light blue shirt, mud jeans, and Reebok sneakers. She had sandy blonde hair and blue eyes. Tabitha has a birthmark on her abdomen and a scar on her finger. Her ears are pierced, and she has a fair, freckled complexion.
Well, thank you for that. So that wraps everything up for today's case with Tabitha Tuders. Again, I encourage you to watch the disappeared episode. There's a lot of information on suspects and everything and how police kind of ran through this investigation. In the meantime, check us out on social media, Mysteries and Mimosas Podcast. I started doing something fun. I got into creating TikTok reels. I've done 2 before. I'm not great, but I did do one from our Mystery Monday episode. So would love your support to make that grow, because really that's what this is about. We want to reach people. So follow us on TikTok, Mysteries and Mimosas Podcast. And of course, drink your Bay Breeze mimosa out of your dragon glassware. If you don't have one, go get one. Use our promo code to get 10% off your entire order. It's Mysteries and Mimosas Podcast. It's also linked on our website if you'd like. Or if you don't want to get dragon glassware, that's totally cool too. Just drink that champagne right out of the glass and chase it down with some cranberry and pineapple. No? That's not how it's done.
I don't know. I mean, I guess it would work.
That'd be horrible.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, you need to enjoy it. Don't
Yeah.
just be a lush and
Right.
drink out of the bottle. If you do, make sure you have a paper bag on it and do it in front of your neighbors.
Oh, jeez.
No? That's my style. I'm kidding. Okay, do you have anything else?
I don't.
Okay, well, in that case, let's go ahead and together with us, if you don't mind. If you have that mimosa, if you're listening, or if you wait till you get home, either way, next time you have one, raise your glass to Tabitha Tuders and her family, and cheers.
Cheers.